Sally. Williams, ready? It's 5:15. We'll call this regular meeting to order. Would everybody please stand and recite the pledge with me? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I'd also like to welcome everybody that's in the audience this evening. Moving to board norms. Cedric?
Decisions will be based on the board's strategic plan and its mission and what's best for the students. The board will act as stewards for tax dollars. Board members will complete the foundation work and be prepared for the meetings. Meetings will be efficient. All perspectives will be voiced and heard, and all board members will maintain a professional decorum.
Thank you, Cedric. We have no public communications. Any conflicts of interest to declare? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Motion by Brenda, seconded by Bob. Any discussion? Hearing none, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving into our regular agenda, we have A is under recognition. And if you're in the audience tonight, when your name is called, if you'd come forward to over here to my right. So, Jennifer, you want to start?
We'd like to recognize Megan Gaffney. She was awarded first team All-State Volleyball. Her parents are Tom and Tricia. In addition to volleyball, she also plays basketball, soccer, and is involved in FCA. Austin Schaefer was awarded second team All-State in boys soccer. His parents are John and Autumn. Sarah Azure was awarded All-State team for girls golf. She is also involved in concert choir, show choir, and vocal jazz. Her parents are Dave and Melissa.
Senior Braden Sherfy, parents are Mark and Elizabeth, is being recognized for second team All-State in boys soccer and nominee for NDHSCA Outstanding Senior Athlete for West Region. His activities are soccer, hockey, stats for girls soccer, concert choir, vocal jazz, NHS, and student council. Eric DeBauer, a senior, is being recognized for WDA Tennis Champion and nominee for the NDHSCA Outstanding Senior Athlete from the Region West. Parents are Kenneth and Stacy. His activities are tennis, boys hockey, manager, and golf. Finally, Hannah Sheely is a junior, is being recognized for second team All-State Volleyball. Her parents are Jeremy and Cheryl, and her activities are volleyball, gymnastics, and softball.
We have two coaches that we're recognizing tonight as well. Mark Sherfy joined Jamestown Public School in August 2014 as head coach of the boys soccer team. He previously served as an assistant coach. Jamestown Public Schools are glad to have Coach Sherfy leading our boys soccer team and congratulate him for receiving the honor of being WDA Coach of the Year. Sarah Hegerly joined Jamestown Public Schools in August 2011 as head coach of the volleyball team. In 2013, she led our volleyball team to a state championship. Jamestown Public Schools are proud of Coach Hegerly for receiving the honor of being named WDA Coach of the Year and Class A Coach of the Year in volleyball. Congratulations to both of our coaches.
Congratulations, everybody. Thank you. Okay, moving on to correspondence. We have nothing under correspondence. Moving to reports. We have the Health Committee report. Bob or Jennifer, you want to?
Well, I could turn it over to Jennifer, but she's only been to one meeting, so she deferred. There's a report in your folders that details a little bit. It's a comparison of the last 3 years, just to give you an idea. Especially we have some new school board members. The reason this is important is Jamestown Public Schools contributes a significant amount of dollars to the Jamestown Public Schools health insurance plan. We are self-funded, which is a little different. And health insurance and the amount of money that the district puts into the health insurance plan is a major part of negotiations every year, and this is a negotiations year. So this will be something we'll have to keep an eye on. Also, we have to give a lot of thanks to the people that serve on the Health Insurance Committee. When you get down to the fund balance at the bottom, you'll see that our fund is very healthy, and a lot of that credit goes to the people that have been on the Health Insurance Committee over the years. They've done a good job of managing the resources. If you want to look, what I did is I took the last 3 years and we always look at expenditures and revenue, and you can see I did the first 4 months. Our fiscal year starts in July. And if you look, it looks bad because expenditures are significantly higher than revenues. The reason for that is that we don't have much in the terms of revenue in July and August. The teachers aren't putting dollars into the health insurance fund, and the school doesn't put money in July and August. So the only dollars that come in those months are a little bit of interest, and then sometimes there's some refund money from Blue Cross. That's about it. So during the course of the year, those numbers will pick up. If you look at the important numbers, the fund balance down at the bottom, you'll see right now that we have a fund balance of slightly over $1.9 million. And the importance of that's the most important figure in health insurance, because the negotiated agreement requires us to carry a 4-month balance, the last 4 months, the total expenditures of the last 4 months. So that's the figure, just over $1 million. So we have a very healthy fund balance, and I guess that's the only thing to report. So it's good news, but it's something that we have to keep an eye on.
Yep. Okay. Thanks, Bob. Moving on to number 2, superintendent's report. Rob?
Okay, briefly, just wanted to bring your attention to, we've talked for the last couple of months how the advanced ed process is changing. Now there's 3 domains, those standards, and resources is the standard that I have provided for you this month, just something to look over and be familiar with as we go through our visitation next year in October. And a reminder too, we have it on our agenda. It is just for review. If you remember, this is the first year of our 2-year calendar. So that comes before the board every 2 years. And it's just a review, just so you know that it's there, and there's no action necessary. Just wanted to make sure that you're aware, and for our new board members to know we do it every other year. The Citizens Advisory Committee, I've included a membership list there, and what we are looking to do with that Citizens Advisory Group is to get a broad perspective of the community to help us provide guidance to the school board in terms of future referendum. So we think that this is a good way to get that community perspective. And I also want people, those out in the community, to understand too, while we have a core group, that it is not a closed group. It's an open group. So anybody that wants to participate, come see what is taking place at the Citizens Advisory. It is an open community meeting. So if you would like to participate, you are certainly welcome to do so. We think the more perspectives we have, the better the plan, the better any potential recommendation could be. Because we want that recommendation to be representative of what our community needs are and what our educational needs are. I had talked at the last meeting regarding a tax exemption request. And I did update this just this morning because we had that meeting last week. And so some of you might not have had a chance to review this portion of my report before. But as a reminder, we had a PILT agreement, payment in lieu of taxes agreement request. The school district was part of that committee. While we don't make the final decision, we do make a recommendation. I'll give you kind of the basics of it here. AgRecover is having a facility expansion, and so they made what's called a PILT agreement request for the next 5 years. The valuation of that PILT agreement, or of that expansion, I should say, is around $250,000, which results, based on our present mill rate, local revenue per year would be around $7,500, give or take. And when you look at the employment impact of that facility, of that expansion, that's 45, at the end of 5 years, about 45 jobs. If one student comes to Jamestown Public Schools from that 45 job expansion, that would mean already we would make up any lost local revenue through per student payments. So, just that job development in itself really makes up the difference there. And we talk about a payment in lieu of tax, and I just want to clarify that the payment in lieu of tax, the PILT agreement is essentially for $0. It's a payment, the payment in lieu of taxes in this situation is zero. But from our standpoint as a school district, it doesn't make a difference. If you think about our funding formula, which we've talked about before, there are some deductions that are made, some at 75%, some at 100%. PILT agreements are made at 100%. So even if we were to get it, it would be taken out of our state foundation aid. So it's basically a wash for us as a school district either way, because it is deducted. The recommendation that we made based on those facts, I was one of those members. There's a county commissioner, some other some staff from Stutzman County involved also, but that recommendation was yes. But that's a Stutzman County decision to make. But that was our recommendation. I'd be happy to answer questions if you had any on that point too. Okay. The facility use agreement, we brought that back. We're bringing that back, that updated agreement. Essentially, what was asked of me was to further define the process in Section 12, that default in the use agreement. And so what we came up with were the procedures that if either entity is considered in default, they'd provide written notice or be provided written notice, have 30 days to address the issue related to default. If it's unresolved, both parties will meet. And if it's still unresolved after that point, then there would be the opportunity to terminate the agreement, suspend performance, or take action that would collect any amounts due or owed under the agreement. So I think it covers all of the instances in which I had heard the board's concern over not having a clearly defined process. So I think my recommendation to bring forward to approve that, unless you have other questions. In the superintendent evaluation clarification, this came up, and I'm glad that a board member brought this up. Do you have to complete the evaluation every meeting or once a month? And I guess my recommendation would be you could do it either or, but the minimum would be once a month. I think that would probably suffice. So if you don't do it in the first meeting of the month, do it in the second meeting of the month. It might just depend on what's on the agenda during that time, what other things are happening, but once a month. Okay. Just today, Mr. Gaylor, our high school principal, asked, him and I had a conversation regarding the Most Likely to Succeed, the book by Ted Dintersmith. If you haven't read it, it's a very good book. But conducting a book study with JHS faculty, and we talked about inviting the school board to also participate if you so wanted to. And so if you do, I would have you either email me or Mr. Gaylor and get on that list. It's a great book, really makes you think about education now, education moving forward. And There's a really good information in that Google Sites link that is linked to the agenda. Gives you some more insight into that. Essentially, over the next 6 months, we would have discussion posts and face-to-face meetings. Face-to-face meetings would be about 45 minutes. Then they would happen about once a month. And just an opportunity to, like I said, gauge where we're at in terms of education, not just in Jamestown, but nationally, where we're moving with public education in general. And then what we need to do taking the next steps forward in education, again, for not just Jamestown, but where we're going as a country. I think it's a great opportunity. I think it's also an opportunity to collaborate with our teaching staff that's involved in the day-to-day of what you set the conditions for. And I think it's a good opportunity. So if you do have interest, like I said, either email me or Mr. Gaylor. I guess I don't have anything to share. Maybe Heidi or Roger, you may. Outside of, we met District 12, District 29 legislators last week. We had a lot of good discussions revolving around school finance, Measure 2, what's going to happen, what's the feeling out there with Measure 2 to behavioral health needs, and we had quite a discussion about that. I really appreciate the legislators that they took the time to come and meet with us, and we could hear their perspectives as well. And unless you had anything to add on that point, I thought it was a good about 2-hour discussion.
The only thing I could say is that it was good to speak to the legislators and have them see where we're coming from on some of the issues and stuff, so. Yep, Heidi?
Yeah, and also just with the new legislators as well, just kind of updating them on some of the things that we might be concerned about or might be watching as we progress, and and depending on what committees they get assigned to and so forth. But it's just good to give them our perspective and give them, it was informational, and the other schools in the district also participated, and that was great. Thank you for organizing that.
So that's what I have. Those
Okay.
are questions.
Any questions for Robin? Steve?
Regarding the advisory committee, is that in the paper, or maybe a Power School announcement or something tomorrow, or?
It has been posted, but we could do an announcement too for anybody. That's a good idea, just to help communicate. Who knows what happens with the weather tomorrow? We might not be having it either, but yeah, it's a good idea.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, moving on to board education, pre-K special education. Wrote in Kathy.
Good evening. I'm Rhoda Young, Special Education Director for James River Cooperative, which Jamestown Public Schools belongs to. We're here to share about preschool tonight. Because of the federal law, Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, children with disabilities, ages birth all the way to 21, have the right to receive special education and related services. In the state of North Dakota, services for eligible children ages 0 through 2 are provided by an entity other than the public school system. In our state, in our region, actually, it is provided by the Ann Carlson Center, and they provide a family-focused, in-home-based sort of service to children ages 0 to 2. Then, when the child reaches age 3, they are eligible for services through the public school system, and we refer to those services as our preschool special needs services. And these services, just like any other services in our schools, constantly grow and evolve and change. And we've had some discussions with Mr. Leck about those, and together we decided that it's probably time to share some things that are going on in preschool with the board. So I brought with me Kathy Fisher, who is our preschool special needs coordinator. Kathy is someone with full knowledge about the program, far more detail than I have. So I ask you to welcome her. She has a lot of information to share with you. Thank you.
Well, thank you. A little different than lecturing in church, isn't it? Okay. Anyway, what I did this evening, I brought along a little brochure that I'd like to share with you folks. Take one, pass them around. That'll kind of give you a little overview of the actual program that we have. This is a brochure that we give out to our patrons when we meet with them. Sometimes I'm invited to speak at some different organizations, and I'll take these brochures. And so we're getting our name out there. At least people are aware of what the school system offers through our special education unit. Obviously, you can read through this. What I'd like to do is just point out a few things. Our purpose, obviously, is to provide quality early intervention services for children with disabilities. And we know that those first 5 years of a child's life, they go through tremendous growth in social, emotional, physical growth, school readiness, or the cognitive growth. And so I always tell people when I'm explaining the preschool special needs program, they'll always say most will say to me right away, "Oh, we know all about it. It's that Gussner room. It's that Gussner room." And I'll say, well, you know that Gussner preschool special needs classroom, yes, that's a component of the special education preschool program. I think of an umbrella, and under that umbrella, the preschool classroom, special needs classroom up at Gussner School is just a small component, okay? We also have services where we go into other entities throughout our community. That is a huge component. We also have parents who bring their children right to our schools, Gussner and Louis, for services, just for like a 30-minute or a 15, 20-minute therapy session. And so with those components, along with the classroom, that's really what the special education preschool program looks like. So it's not just Gussner. Also, I'll get calls, and they'll call asking about, how do we get into the preschool program at Gussner? We really want preschool. And so then I have to explain also the eligibility criteria and children being on an IEP. And that whole process for parents. So, you know, as a community, we have people out there that are very concerned about early childhood programming, and we are just very fortunate to have the programming that we have for our special education. The little brochure just continues on to explain, you know, when parents are asking about preschool special needs, it explains, you know, eligibility. We also, you know, the effectiveness of a program is what you can offer through that program. And for special education, one of the things that we just are very, very concerned about is that children are receiving their services in a least restrictive environment. And we are so fortunate in Jamestown to have the preschool programming that we have out in our community for all children, in the fact that if you are a child that has a disability, that you can also receive your services in a least restrictive environment. For instance, we have several children who go to Head Start, and we are able to go into Head Start and bring services to them. And so they can remain in that environment, that least restrictive environment, with their peers and still receive the services that we offer. At this time, I'd like to just acknowledge some of the people that I work with. I have there's just an amazing core preschool team. Tammy Mack is our early childhood special educator. She's our one teacher up at Gussner in the preschool special needs classroom. We have a speech pathologist, Sheena Nyes. She, along with some of the other speech paths, and I'll mention that, but Sheena is within that core team. She is busy with most every little one has some speech need. I work with Kelly Anderson, our occupational therapist, and Whitney Troutman, our physical therapist. That's our core team. I also want to mention that when we're taking these services out into additional places within the community, the other speech pathologists from our elementary schools, they're all involved. And so we couldn't, the wheel wouldn't go around without those gals being a part of being a cog in that wheel. I also work with Dr. Saxberg, of course, because with the program being up at Gusner. A good team. You received information. Amy, you sent out information regarding programming, preschool programming, and it looked something like this. Okay. On your computer, right? Anyway, just the first page has to do with the Gusner Preschool Special Needs Classroom. And, as we're talking about growth and futuristic thinking, being proactive, I thought it was important to give you an idea of just collecting some data and I went back as far as 2009. A little information on the Gusner Preschool Special Education Classroom. We have 2 sessions, an AM and a PM session. The AM session runs from 8:30 until 11 o'clock. The PM session starts at 12:30 and goes until 3. We offer programming 4 days a week, 3 days a week, 2 days a week. Some little ones come Monday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Thursday. Some come 3 days, some come all 4. We also, with our 2 sessions, as you could have seen, as I showed you with the enrollment, the different enrollment numbers, if you average it out, it's probably each year, if you average, it's about 22 students per year in the classroom, in that preschool special needs classroom. You'll notice down at 2014 and then 2015, last year's 2015-16, the numbers were much larger. And so perhaps that's indicative of what's coming along. But I also, in visiting with the superintendent in Rhoda, I mentioned, not only do numbers increase, but the needs are really great. And so we want to be able to fulfill our responsibilities that we are required. And so it's important that we continue to look at where we're going with the preschool special education programming. I want to just mention that numbers, we grow during the year. You don't start out with, we're at 10 and 10 right now. You don't just stay there. Trust me, we grow. And when a child turns 3, and if they are eligible for services, they get started. If it's the 1st of April, or if it's the last day of September, or the 1st of May, they'll get started in our programming. We are legally responsible for their programming. The next page had to do with, as I mentioned, the Gusner Preschool Special Education Classroom is not that's not the program. The next page was just kind of laid out the different locations in which we go into. You'll notice from 2009 to 2015, and we went from 5 and 6 locations, all the way up to 9. And now this year, at the beginning of the year, we were at 11 different places where we could go in. And we just really appreciate being able to go into these other entities within our community, because it, again, allows us least restrictive environment for our children. It's kind of interesting, the preschool services available out in the community. We already are down one. One has, the YMCA, or James River Family Fitness Center. They're changing with their programming. And so we're not going in there right now because there isn't one. But there are others. We've got Bright Beginnings. We have a couple other places in our community that are thinking of opening up. And so we may be, these people contact me, and if they have the preschool licensure that they need and is required, then we begin to look at how we can plug in some programming in their places. The last page, I tried to get a little bit more specific in Jamestown. And again, we have 10 children in the AM and 10 in the PM, and that was of November. So that will be changing, I'm sure, within the next couple weeks. We've taken in 33 referrals since the beginning of the year. Last year we took in, I believe, 57 referrals for the year. We're serving 50 children right now. Last year we ended up serving 60. So you can see we're not even halfway there yet. So as far as referrals, it's out there. We're finding the little ones. Parents make referrals. Medical profession at times makes referrals. I get referrals from Head Start. We receive referrals from other private and public preschools within our community. So we have our, and we also are responsible for child find. And that's something, if some of you recall, when we used to do those mass preschool screenings, we'd mass out. Sometimes we'd screen 250 kids and maybe find 2, and we began to think, is this really the best way to do it? And so over the course of the last maybe 5, 6, 7 years, we decided to work more like the medical profession, where people can just they can make an appointment to have their child screened, and that's our child find. A letter goes out to all the principals, and gets out to the community the patrons in our community. So we fulfill that responsibility. So, we're busy, very busy. I can't speak high enough for this team that I work for and with. They're out there doing. They not only have Tammy not only has a classroom, but she of little ones and has lessons ready, but she also does, they do the assessments, they attend meetings. We attended approximately 150 meetings last year. We're busy. These gals are busy, and they fulfill that responsibility very nicely. We're very fortunate to have them. So where are we at now? Well, you might be thinking, I would open this up to questions, but I'm going to answer 2 questions, and then maybe you wouldn't ask those. The first one is, what are we looking for here? Are we growing? Are we asking for something? Well, no, not really. I think we need to just be proactive, though, in the fact that 2 things we need to be, I think, very, very cognizant of. Number 1 would be the staff. Are we able to fulfill our responsibility with the staffing that we have, and where are we at with that? And I think we do a very, very nice job every year of going back and just looking over and saying, where are we at with that? The other thing is, we certainly want to be able to fulfill our responsibilities with services. And when you're speaking about and talking about special education, special needs, the environment is huge. You might have a couple with wheelchairs, walkers, things like that. So if you've been up to the Gusner Preschool Special Needs Classroom, it's a nice room. It's quite large. It's open. Those are the types of environmental things that we're looking at. And I'm not saying that one classroom is enough, but I am saying if we're at that point, we're, looking at facilities and environmental makeup of what we're offering. The last thing I'd like to leave you with, unless you have questions, is how does the preschool programming really benefit us? And there are 3 things that I came up with, and I know there are more, but for one thing, we meet these little kids at a very early age, and we have an idea of what their needs are. And so when kindergarten comes, it's not like, whoa, we weren't aware. So it's that getting that little jump start and getting some of those services started prior to kindergarten. The other thing is some of the children will come in on medical diagnosis. And the one thing that comes to mind is autism. They'll come in on a medical diagnosis of autism, and yet we have North Dakota guidelines for the educational component of autism. And so they don't automatically fall into a primary disability of autism education-wise. And so having an environment like Gusner Preschool, these children can come actually into an educational environment, and we can collect data and do progress monitoring. And sometimes their disability isn't impacting their education. And they were requiring some of that routine and structure, which we find in our classroom. That's a huge benefit. The last thing is, our little ones, these little ones, they're exposed to zones. If you've heard zones, self-regulation, the green zone, the yellow zone, the red zone, the blue zone. We've got little ones going home telling their parents, you're in the green zone, or you're getting in the red zone. And, these are little people. The vocabulary and terminology with zones, that's going to continue, because we go on into kindergarten on up. We're trying to get this into our school system. So they're coming in and they're aware of some of that, of the terminology, as well as nurtured heart. They're being exposed to that too. So the transition from preschool to kindergarten is a pretty nice, smooth transition. So anyway, I hope I've given you a little bit more or a better understanding. Perhaps you know most of this, or maybe it was some new information. I'm always available. You can call me during the day. I like to talk about preschool. So if you have any questions right now, I certainly would be available. I could visit with you about that. Or, someday Rhoda and the superintendent and I, we do periodically meet to stay on top of things in the preschool world. So if you have questions
Rob,
that
did
you
have
want
a
to.
comment, or does anybody else have any questions for Kathy, or?
I had just a few comments. Kathy talked about her staff, and I think we need to recognize her also. A very passionate person to lead our neediest of students in our community, and she does a wonderful job. We're very fortunate to have an advocate for special ed for our youngest, like I said, most vulnerable students like Kathy. You can tell she has a passion for what she does, and we appreciate you.
Oh, thank you.
The reason that I thought it was important to have Kathy and Rhoda come is sometimes we think that public school starts at age 5 because it starts at age 5 for many children. But there's a percentage of our kids that it starts earlier, and and I think it's very important that we're aware of those students, what their needs are, because we do service them in public education. We are required to service them, but we enjoy that opportunity to get them into school, some as early as age 3, and get those services that they need, support their families in the way that they need to be able to start their educational journey, even if they start a little bit earlier. I wanted to kind of follow up with something that Kathy talked about that I think it's really important. I wrote something down here. Our student needs drive our program. It's not the other way around. We don't fit the students' programming into what we have. So that's something to notice. As our, if needs change, that's something that we have to consider as a school district. How are we going to provide services if those needs change, if they fluctuate up, if they fluctuate down? How does that change our services? But like I said, the students' needs drive the program. It doesn't work the other way around. We don't say, I'm sorry, we can only offer 2 hours because that's all we have. It's all driven by student needs. And so we provide, in a least restrictive environment, the services that our kids need. And that looks different for kids because they come to us with different needs. But I think it's important that you know that. And I think it's also important that you recognize that we do get funding. We do get the per pupil payment for our pre-K special ed students. And that's on a weighted system. So we actually get a little bit more than we do get for others. So, and just so you're aware of all those factors. But I think, as Kathy said, I think our program does a really nice job of getting our students the needs, getting them everything they need to be successful, like I said, as they start their educational journey with us. So thank you. Thank you to Kathy and to Rhoda for coming, and I appreciate providing that little bit of education for our board members who may not be as aware as you are of our pre-K special ed kids.
Yes.
Greg?
Yeah, obviously we see the numbers going up, but do you have some kids that come in like at age 3 but at age 4 they're to the point where they're go out of the program, or do they normally stay in until they start the regular school?
We do, Mr. Allen, and not a lot, but we celebrate those ones, I tell you, yes. We do have little ones, starting early, and oftentimes we'll see that, and it's encouraging to parents, because when they start them at 3, sometimes by the time they're ready to go to kindergarten, they've caught up, they're age appropriate, and away they go. And that definitely is a goal of all of ours. But then, if not, the IEP transitions with them, and our team works with the kindergarten teams in transition. So we have a system where that seems to work out very nicely too. But yes, we do celebrate. We celebrate some of the little ones. You bet that no longer need those services.
Other
Thank you.
questions for? None? I mean, it was good information. Thank you.
Thank you, yes.
Moving on to letter D, any old business? Hearing none, we'll move into new business. We have nothing under activities. Under building and grounds, we have the Citizens Advisory Committee there. It's an agenda that's coming up tomorrow's meeting, and it's got a list of the committee membership there for you. Moving to letter B, is there an updated facility agreement with Two Rivers Activity Center? Is there a motion to approve that change? Motion by Heidi, seconded by Greg. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We have nothing under curriculum or finance or personnel. And then under policy and procedures, the review, it's a 2017-18 calendar, and it's already been approved, but for the new members, we approved the 2-year calendar, so this is just for your information that's in there, so. Oh, Heidi?
I do like the new way of doing it, 2 years. So now, when will we get the next 2 years to approve for people planning vacations and different things with their families?
Yep, Rob?
Typically, we start the process around November, December. So next year, we'll be working on this, because we already have the 17-18 calendar approved. So at this time next year, we'll be creating a new 2-year. Yep. Yes.
Okay, moving on to number 7, tuition. Is there a motion to approve a tuition agreement for a 9th grade Jamestown student to attend Medina Public School? Motion by Brenda, seconded by Cedric. Any discussion? Hearing none, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. There a motion to approve a tuition agreement for a 5th grade Jamestown student to attend Barnes County North for the 2016-17 school year. Motion by Greg, seconded by Steve. Any discussion? Hearing none, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. There a motion to approve a tuition agreement for 11th grade Jamestown student to attend Beach Public School for the 2016-17 school year. Motion by Jennifer, seconded by Bob. Any discussion? Hearing none, assuming roll call vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Any items for future agendas? If something does come up, just let Rob or myself know, and we'll get that onto the agenda. We have meetings to be scheduled here. We have the Citizens Advisory Committee meeting. It's Tuesday, December 6th at 6 p.m. at the multipurpose room in the middle school. We have the Health Committee meeting coming up on Monday, December 12th at 3:30 in the conference room at our district office. We have a special school board meeting on Monday, December 12th at 4 p.m. That's beginning at Lincoln Elementary. And we have the transition house and continuing to Gustner, Roosevelt, and Louis L'Amour Elementary. And then we also have the district improvement, the MTSS meeting is on Tuesday, Well, December 8th, is that Tuesday, Mike? I think, yep, at 3:30 in the Thompson Room in the middle school. 8th, he changed it to the 8th, I think.
That's the district text.
Oh, district tech, okay. The MTSS is still on the 13th. And then we have the district tech meeting on December 8th at 4 PM. And then our next regular school board meeting is Monday, January 16th at 5:15 here in the Thompson Room. Brenda? Has that been changed, or? It's 4:30 instead of 4 o'clock. Okay, yep. So the special board meeting is at 4:30, so. Heidi, you have a question, or?
SEC has changed their meeting to December 20th at the same time.
20th, okay. If there's no other business, I'd just remind everybody to right-click on the monthly superintendent evaluation, section 1 and 3, and then also to right-click on your adjournment to assess the meeting. So, no further business, meeting's adjourned. And safe travel for everybody.